address the elephant in the room. The election officially ends in 2 days. That's been a semantics thing that people have been talking about. It's like the election isn't on November 3rd; it ends November 3rd. So like you can vote until then, and then early voting ended yesterday in Virginia, I think. But that's all taken care of. I've already voted. Are you old enough to vote? Or are you still 17?
I have to wait till next year, sadly.
Uh, well, in Virginia, there's an election every year. We always have like our local stuff and like our statewide stuff. Uh, like on the off years, like next year we're gonna have our gubernatorial election,
Yeah.
and that should be interesting.
It's gonna be interesting because Ralph Northam in the blackface that's gonna come up.
Well, I mean, like he can't run for re-election. That is the thing. Like Virginia is weird because in our state, governors only get one term period. Like they can't rerun. I could see maybe I don't know Justin Fairfax. I would have said before the sexual assault thing that he got in trouble with. Like I would
I
have
don't
said
think
that maybe he would
I
run,
think
but
he
I think he.
sued CBS though for it, like
Uh,
for the posting of the story, like slander or something.
yeah, but either way, that's still like if he decides to run, like that's gonna haunt him.
Yeah, yeah, I will. But
Yeah. Mark Herring. I don't know how. Like Mark Herring. He's been like the. Yeah, he's been the state's attorney general for a while. Like apparently that's not just one term for him, but I don't know how long. I think he's been there for 2 terms at least. Uh, but let's talk about like the national election. Obviously, we have Donald Trump and Joe Biden, in the general election, and yeah, I've been looking at a little bit of polling, and I've seen like a whole lot of people comment on the polls. Not just people, like not just like the hacks in mainstream media, but just uh, you know, commentators, who obviously have their own opinions slanted into it. But it's not like the people in mainstream media don't have their opinions slanted into it. They just act like it isn't. Um, but they're saying that there was like one polling scenario that said that the best case scenario for Trump, um, for actually winning is if he wins all the states he's currently leading in, all of the states he's tied in, and all of the states in which he's trailing Biden by 5%. And
I mean, yeah, I mean it's possible,
I
but
mean, yeah, like anything's possible, but I think it's almost kind of already pre-decided that Biden's
yeah,
gonna win. What?
then it's like Hillary 2.0, like a failed prediction because we have to like also look at in mail voting and stuff.
Yeah,
And the Supreme Court like limiting states like Alabama and Pennsylvania
yeah,
in terms of in mail ballots or even curbside voting.
yeah. There was a Supreme Court case, one that Amy Coney Barrett was not a part of, being that she had just like been put onto the court 2 days before. Uh, but it was a 5-3 decision, to extend, like the counting days, for, mail-in ballots, like if they don't necessarily have to be postmarked by election day. Like there's a little bit of a longer thing for that. So yeah, but yeah, that's what the Supreme Court said was allowed, I think. But yeah, Neil Gorsuch, Clarence Thomas, and Samuel Alito voted against it, and it's pretty
As
much like
expected, they're very conservative.
yeah. Um, I don't know. I saw a few headlines about like Brett Kavanaugh talking about like citing Bush v. Gore as a potential, like, and this is what I've been talking about. There is precedent for this. The Supreme Court can interfere in the election, like they did with Bush v. Gore, and Brett Kavanaugh was using that as a potential way to give, like he's been citing that as a potential way to give the election to Trump, which would be absolutely terrifying. And you know my dad has great faith in the neutrality of the Supreme Court, but I honestly think he's hopelessly optimistic, because even if like John Roberts um votes to, just respect the results of the election or whatever, or like, votes in a way that would help Biden, that's not enough anymore.
Yeah, because there's
That's there's more
more so
conservatives.
right wing conservatives in the court with Amy Coney
Yeah,
Barrett now. So,
I don't know. I don't know, like, because I can definitely see John Roberts, because like I think he's like the only actually like somewhat moderate conservative, and I'm using that term very loosely,
yeah, because
moderate
he like
conservative on the court
yeah,
left.
because like when earlier I was speaking like when the Supreme Court upheld the Alabama's curbside voting ban, he was one of the people that voted for it.
Yeah, and well, like, I mean, like Neil Gorsuch has been on the right side of some decisions as of late. One decision that me and Alex talked about in a recent episode was when he wrote, not only did he vote this way, but like he wrote the majority opinion on a case that ended workplace discrimination against the LGBT, and basically saying like it's very much like that group is very much included in the Civil Rights Act. And so like, and that is potential precedent for him not just voting along party lines, but if it was directly along party lines, I think that'll ultimately destroy the Supreme Court's credibility once and for all, at least as a neutral, above the fray institution. And honestly, I think that was already kind of done with Bush v. Gore, since that was directly along party lines, except it was a 5-4 decision, not a 6-3 decision, like it would be these
I mean,
days. And
yeah,
also, Brett Kavanaugh definitely shattered that precedent of having neutral judges on the Supreme Court by saying that the allegations against him in his hearings were, the work of the Clintons and George Soros. Um, basically saying like, oh, it's all been all about, overturning the election and getting back at President Trump. I was the most drunk version in high school, pretty much. Or like that was his argument. but and then there's also, you know, what I found interesting is that I think it was Nate Silver's 538, which was the least inaccurate poll last time around, because all the pollsters were saying that Hillary Clinton was going to win. Uh, you know, Nate Silver was also saying that, but he put it at like a 70% chance, Trump at a 30% chance, and 30% chance in this kind of
yeah,
scenario is actually a pretty good chance.
yeah, because there was a
And
lot of response bias as well. Because a
yeah,
lot of people knew Trump was racist, and he wasn't like perceived well by most of the public. But a lot of voters said they weren't going to vote at all, or they vote for Hillary when they actually went to the polls and voted for Trump.
yeah, that was like the silent majority that they
Yeah,
would always talk about, like in their campaign signs, like the silent majority stands with Trump or something like that. But since then they've adjusted their polling for that potential pro-Trump swing, and it still looks pretty good for Biden. And and also saw like in Nate Silver's, I think it was Nate Silver's 538 this time around. It was like it doesn't even look like Ohio's going to be that much in play, because in the past every candidate who won Ohio won the election. But it looks like Trump's going to win Ohio, but it doesn't look like that's going to be enough to uh, beat Biden. In fact, in that prediction, Biden kind of has a landslide win over Trump.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
And
Ohio has been hit hard, especially with coronavirus. So, I mean, it is
maybe,
possible
yeah,
Ohio could go blue. I wouldn't count
yeah,
on it, but it's possible.
yeah. But at the moment, more than likely, it looks like it is going to swing Trump, because it is a more red state.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
and I think the fact that Ohio goes to whoever the winner is, I think that's just more or less based on coincidence. But
Yeah.
I yeah, I don't know why people put so much precedent on Ohio for that reason. But um
Yeah, there's bigger states with more electoral votes like Texas and stuff.
yeah, like Texas is actually in play this time around. I think last I checked, Biden is leading in Florida currently like I think recently or currently he's campaigning in Georgia, which I don't know why, because I think Georgia is very safely gonna go to Trump more than likely, even though they like that it like South Carolina, it is a majority minority state, but voter suppression laws,
Yeah,
which were
and
very
district
much
district
heavily
control.
yeah, very yeah, like gerrymandering would more affect, the outcome of like house races, but since this is more on a statewide level with the presidential election. Uh but but yeah, like voter suppression laws, which were very like especially in Georgia, like in the midterms, like where it like Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State and he was in charge of the elections, and he was overseeing the election he was running in, so that was like that completely opened the door for corruption, and he ended up kicking like thousands of voters off the roll. And then yeah, there's also, like I mentioned, South Carolina. Jamie Harrison looks like he actually has a shot,
Yeah, because
which
Graham hasn't
which
done
is it's
anything for
something.
the state. A lot of things Jamie
Yeah,
Harrison's saying, Graham has not mentioned at all in his 25 years in Senate. No, no, sorry, not
yeah,
25, 17 years in Senate.
yeah. But Lindsey Graham does have incumbency advantage, and also on top of that, voter suppression laws in South
Yeah,
Carolina are
definitely.
very bad.
Yeah, because of the redistricting and the voter ID laws are very strict there. So. But I do think that
Yeah,
if he does get enough voters, I do feel he's going to get more black voters and possibly more white voters that may lead him to like beat Lindsey Graham though,
maybe so.
because he has
Um,
spent a lot on media that targets those demographics versus Lindsey Graham. He hasn't really came up with new innovative ideas really.
yeah. I haven't looked at any polling for the main Senate race recently, but last I have checked, it looks like Susan Collins is actually in danger. Um, Mark Kelly in Arizona, because the one election, the election in Arizona back in the midterms did go blue, but since the other person was the other senator was basically there as a placeholder for McCain, he left the Senate, and the runner up in that race took McCain's place. So like she got in there by losing essentially. But yeah, I think what was her name? What was her name? Martha McSally, I think's her
Yeah,
name. And then yeah, Mark Kelly is running against her because McCain's term was supposed to expire this year. And again, I haven't looked at a lot of polling in that race as of recent, but like looking at the precedents set by that Senate race in the midterms, it is very possible that Mark Kelly could win. And Mark Kelly is Gabby Giffords' husband. Gabby Giffords was a congresswoman who
yeah.
I
She
think
was
she
shot at a
resigned. Yeah,
convention.
yes, yeah, she was like, I know she was shot and she was in the hospital for a long time. I don't know if that's what directly led to her resignation, but like she resigned sometime after that, and she's a big advocate for like gun control, which and Mark Kelly is as well, so that could be potentially good. Um, and then there's also the race in Kentucky, which let's be honest, I don't think Amy McGrath
Yeah,
is going to
like
win.
Amy McGrath is like,
They're lighting $100 million on fire, and
yeah. I don't know. Amy McGrath is not the best candidate to really beat Mitch McConnell because
well,
a
yeah,
lot of people were
like I've said,
disappointed that
she's yeah,
like Charles Booker didn't actually win. And a lot of that was due to, honestly, I feel like the polling places where they shut a lot of them down, especially in Louisville.
yeah,
They had like only like
and there's a whole lot
like
of
one or two
yeah,
locations.
there's also a whole lot of Kentucky voters who posted on Twitter, a screenshot from like their like Kentucky's like election website or whatever, like saying that their vote was not counted.
Wow,
And these
didn't know
people
that.
said like I voted for Charles Booker and my vote wasn't counted. And So a lot of sketchy shit around that primary, but I guess it is what it is. Amy McGrath is running against Mitch McConnell, and with that being said, I think she's gonna lose. But it's not like Mitch McConnell's for certain gonna stay the majority leader.
No,
Um,
because yeah, I mean he has done horrible stuff, but his base is kind of like Trump, and they're very devoted to like him because he's been in office, I think, since
yeah,
1985.
yeah, and on top of that, and this is like the real issue with Amy McGrath. Amy McGrath is one of a very long line of Democratic, basically like literally GOP light candidates that Chuck Schumer and the DSCC keep on, anointing to run in these areas, and and there are plenty of progressive voters in Kentucky, and they just don't show up to vote because they don't feel like the Democratic candidates represent them at all. And I think
No,
the same goes for West Virginia. And then
yeah,
that's why I think, it's very possible that even though Trump might win West Virginia, because West Virginia was his best state last time around, like he won by the biggest margin. I think Paula Jean Swearengin, who is the Democratic candidate for the Senate, who's taking on the Republican incumbent in West Virginia, and she's a Bernie-crat. I actually think she stands a chance because she the thing is, like, with Bernie style politics, it's really heavily focused on like the bread and butter economic issues that are mostly like working class based, and West Virginia is very much in that category of people who would care about that kind of thing, you know so I think Paul Jean Swearengin stands a chance. There's also Marquita Bradshaw, who's running for Senate in Tennessee. She won her primary in a big upset. The guy who was expected to win got third place, and he out fundraised her. What was it, like? It was like 10-1, something like that. I don't, yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers with the fundraising, but it was quite astonishing. It was like like when AOC and like had been out fundraised by Joe Crowley 10-1 back in 2018. But yeah, Makita Bradshaw like won her primary on a platform of environmental justice and talking about environmental racism, which is not really a mainstream issue. So like I thought that was really cool. And then on top of that, there's all of the other down ballot races in which there were primary upsets where the older incumbents were taken out by younger, more progressive candidates, and most of those were in like blue districts. So blue districts. So like Jamal Bowman, Mondaire Jones, Corey Bush. It's just to name a few. Because we've had a lot, progressives have had a lot of good wins in the primary season this last time around. It's hard to keep track of them all, which is a good thing.
yeah.
But yeah, like they're probably more than likely gonna win because most of these wins were in blue districts. Um, but yeah, do you do you think it's possible that the Democrats can take back the Senate?
I think so. This election that we're more likely to because we have a lot of, as you said, moderate candidates. But states like Georgia, South Carolina, they're not really GOP like that or represent GOP, but they're more so focused on those bread and butter issues like healthcare, employment, a better COVID response, which resonates with a lot of Southern people who typically don't like to focus on other things that may be
Yeah,
controversial, but things that relate to them. So I do feel that we can actually win.
yeah,
But it's
as
just
like
hard to
personally,
get
I
like
thought this
this
was
out.
kind of, yeah, as ridiculous as this kind of sounds on the surface, the idea of like, people who like are economically progressive, like economically like agree with like Bernie Sanders's ideas, but socially they don't either. That either they are kind of on the right or they just don't give a shit. That actually is like a huge group of voters. And that's why I think it's important for like many progressives to like, focus solely on bread and butter issues rather than the identity politics, because the identity politics is definitely like a turnoff for many people.
I mean,
And
yeah, I mean it's from a topical view, it's a good thing. But the thing is, it just fails us at the end of the day because Republicans even do it. In fact, I read earlier that Donald Trump and GOP just got some new House reps that are like of color, so they're running like heavily GOP districts, so they're even getting into identity politics as well.
yeah, because well, the thing is,
Yeah,
like
because
they did that with like I'm assuming that was like the motivation behind nominating Amy Coney Barrett for the Supreme Court, and that was a huge reason why a lot of speakers at the RNC were people of color and women, and because like either like they're trying to cash in on that or maybe they're just trying to flip the narrative back onto the Democrats. He's like, oh, you can't criticize our people because we have diversity too. And
yeah, like because it's a
like I
kind of
don't know.
stereotypical notion that GOP is like full of old white men and are trying to kind of like
Yeah,
change that narrative and make it more diverse.
yeah, yeah. Like you know, David Cameron being pumped out there saying he's like, oh, if you attack me for decisions I've made, you're racist. Pretty much. I like I don't like I think he blamed like racism when it came to like people criticizing him for like his decision with like the Breonna Taylor case.
Yeah, they're trying to make the hypocrisy like black people who think different, like the Candace Owen types, like are actually being treated like are actually being criticized by racist Democrats and people on the left.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just like, oh, you just hate because I'm a free thinking black person. Like,
yeah,
sure, whatever. It's like it's like those
yeah.
people who say like,
I mean, and
I'm
then
gonna
the
be
thing is,
politically
like, some of
incorrect
their
here.
white,
I'm gonna say,
yeah. But the thing is, some of their white supporters are the same ones. If it's a Democrat saying there's some inequality here. No, you're race baiting. Like, it's just
yeah,
hypocritical.
yeah, like it comes from those same kind of people. Say, I'm gonna say something very politically incorrect. I think communism is bad. Aren't I edgy? And then there's of course like the people who aren't politically incorrect. They're just fucking incorrect. You're just being a dick. Um, and then like like that was the or like when 50 Cent like after 50 Cent endorsed Trump, one of his ex-girlfriends, I think it was I think it was a comedian. I forgot her name. It was I don't know, but like she tweeted out, like used to be my favorite ex, but like I will pay your taxes if you just just come back, because 50 Cent was actually like a harsh critic of Trump for a long time, and like even like in his endorsement he acknowledged that Trump doesn't like black people. He just wants to keep his money. Uh, but yeah, after that, so like this guy that we know, he posted that tweet on his story, and then after that he posted a video from Candace Owens talking about how that woman is a racist for saying that 50 Cent shouldn't endorse Donald Trump. And we're gonna get more to like things like that uh, later, but yeah, overall I think Joe Biden is probably going to win. I think it's more than likely that the Democrats will maintain the House. Senate is more up in the air, because, or at least like with the high profile like Republican incumbent races. Uh, it's yeah, like yeah, that's definitely a little bit more up in the air. But